In this video, you will have the opportunity to take a full TOEFL listening practice test. You will listen to recordings and answer questions. After you finish the test, you will see the correct answers. Now, grab some paper and a pen so you can write down your answers and compare them with the correct answers I will show you afterwards. If you're going to take your TOEFL soon, check out my TOEFL materials. There, I teach you everything you need to score high. I show you step by step how to give high scoring answers. And of course, we do many practice tests together, so you will feel confident for your test. You can find the link to the TOEFL materials in the description box. And now, let's get started.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Professor Martinez? Hi, I'm Sarah Chen from your international business class. Do you have a few minutes? I'm really struggling with the case study assignment.
Of course, Sarah. Which case study are you working on?
The one about international market entry strategies. I chose the tech startup trying to expand into new regional markets, but I'm kind of lost about how to approach the cultural adaptation part.
Ah, yes. What specifically is giving you trouble?
Well, I understand the basic concept of cultural adaptation, but when I try to apply it to the case, everything seems so general. Like, I know they need to adapt their marketing, but I don't know how to be specific about it without just making assumptions.
Tell me, what research have you done so far about the target markets?
I've read about Hofstede's cultural dimensions and looked at some basic demographic data for the regions they're targeting, but honestly, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, and this is something I probably should have emphasized more in class. You need to dig deeper into consumer behavior studies, not just cultural theory. Have you looked at any recent market research reports from the regions you're studying?
No, I didn't know where to find those. Are they available through the library?
Absolutely. Sarah, let me stop you right there. The business database we have access to through the library, ProQuest Business Collection, has tons of market research reports. You should also check out the McKinsey Global Institute reports. They're free and incredibly detailed.
Oh, I had no idea. I've just been using Google Scholar mostly.
That's fine for academic papers. But for current market conditions and consumer insights, you need industry reports. Now, once you have that data, here's what I want you to do. Instead of trying to address all cultural factors, pick 2 or 3 specific cultural barriers that would directly impact user adoption of the technology.
That makes sense. So focus on specific obstacles rather than trying to cover everything?
Exactly. And then, this is crucial, propose concrete solutions. Don't just say adapt marketing messages. Tell me how they should adapt them, what channels they should use, maybe even suggest specific partnerships with local companies.
Okay, that's much clearer. Should I also include cost analysis for these adaptations?
Good question. For this assignment, a rough cost benefit analysis would be helpful, but don't get bogged down in detailed financial projections. Focus more on the strategic rationale. Save the detailed financial modeling for your final project next month.
Right. Um, One more thing. The deadline is next Friday, and I'm worried I won't have enough time to do all this additional research properly.
Tell you what, if you can show me a solid outline with your chosen cultural barriers and proposed solutions by Wednesday, I'll give you until the following Monday to submit the full paper. Sound fair?
That would be amazing. Thank you so much, Professor Martinez. I feel like I actually have a direction now.
You're welcome. And Sarah, don't hesitate to come back if you hit another roadblock. That's what office hours are for.
Now answer the questions. What is the conversation mainly about? What is the student's main problem with the assignment? Listen again to part of the conversation.
Have you looked at any recent market research reports from the regions you're studying?
No, I didn't know where to find those. Are they available through the library?
Absolutely. Sarah, let me stop you right there. The business database we have access to through the library, ProQuest Business Collection, has tons of market research reports.
What does the professor mean when he says this?
Let me stop you right there.
According to the professor, what should the student focus on instead of trying to address all cultural factors? What can be inferred about the student's research methods prior to this meeting? Listen to part of a lecture in a marine biology class.
All right, everyone. Today we're going to dive into, pun intended, one of the ocean's most fascinating predators. Now, when I ask you to picture a shark, what comes to mind? The classic torpedo shape, right? Well, what if I told you that some sharks have evolved a completely different approach to survival? Let's talk about hammerhead sharks. Now, the first thing that strikes you about hammerheads is obviously their distinctive head shape. But this isn't just nature being, well, creative for the sake of it. This flattened, extended head structure, called a cephalofoil, serves several crucial functions that give these sharks remarkable advantages in their marine environment.
Professor, how many species of hammerhead sharks are there exactly?
Great question, James. There are actually 9 recognized species, ranging from the relatively small bonnethead shark to the massive great hammerhead, which can reach lengths of up to 20 feet. But regardless of size, they all share certain key adaptations. Let's start with sensory enhancement. You see, sharks in general have these specialized organs called ampullae of Lorenzini. These are essentially electroreceptors that detect the electrical fields generated by all living organisms. Now, in hammerheads, these electroreceptors are distributed across that wide, flattened head, giving them an incredibly sensitive detection system. It's like having a metal detector that's 10 times wider than normal. You can cover more ground and detect things with much greater precision. But the sensory advantages don't stop there. The positioning of their eyes on the outer edges of the cephalofoil provides them with exceptional binocular vision. Unlike other sharks that have more limited visual overlap, hammerheads can see above, below, and to both sides simultaneously. This creates what we call a 360-degree visual field. Imagine having eyes on the sides of your head that could still work together to judge distances accurately. Now, here's where it gets really interesting from a hydrodynamic perspective. That head shape actually functions as a sophisticated hydrofoil. When hammerheads swim, the cephalofoil generates lift, much like an airplane wing generates lift in air. This allows them to make incredibly sharp turns and sudden direction changes that would be impossible for a traditional torpedo-shaped shark. Think of it as the difference between a motorcycle and a race car taking a corner. The hammerhead has that enhanced maneuverability. Recent research has also revealed something quite remarkable about their hunting strategies. Great hammerheads, in particular, have been observed using their heads as actual weapons. They'll pin stingrays to the seafloor using the edge of their cephalofoil, then rotate to take a bite. It's a behavior we call pinning and pivoting, and it's completely unique among shark species.
That's incredible. But doesn't that weird head shape create problems too? Like increased drag when swimming?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But evolution has found some elegant solutions. The cephalofoil is actually quite streamlined when viewed from the front, and the additional lift it generates more than compensates for any increased resistance. Plus, hammerheads have developed some of the most energy-efficient swimming patterns we've observed in large marine predators. What's particularly fascinating is how these adaptations work together as a system. The enhanced electroreception helps them locate buried prey, the superior vision helps them track fast-moving targets, the improved maneuverability helps them catch agile prey, and the head-pinning behavior helps them handle dangerous prey like stingrays. It's a perfect example of how evolution doesn't just modify one trait, it creates integrated systems of adaptations. Unfortunately, these remarkable predators face significant challenges today. Their unique fin structure makes them particularly valuable in the shark fin trade, and their tendency to school in large groups makes them vulnerable to overfishing. Several hammerhead species are now listed as endangered, which is, well, it's a sobering reminder that even the most perfectly adapted organisms aren't immune to human impact.
Now answer the questions. What is the main topic of the lecture? Why does the professor discuss hammerhead sharks in this lecture? Listen again to part of the lecture.
All right, everyone. Today we're going to dive into, pun intended, one of the ocean's most fascinating predators.
What does the professor mean when she says this?
Pun intended.
According to the lecture, how many recognized species of hammerhead sharks exist? What can be inferred about hammerhead sharks' evolutionary development? How does the professor organize the information about hammerhead advantages? Listen to part of a lecture in a physics class.
So, we've been talking about electromagnetic radiation for the past few weeks, and today I want to focus on something that's absolutely fundamental to our understanding of physics, the speed of light. Now, this might seem like a straightforward concept, but trust me, there's a lot more complexity here than you might expect. First, let's establish exactly what we're talking about. When physicists refer to the speed of light, we're typically referring to the speed of light in a vacuum, which is approximately 299,792,458 meters per second. That's a mouthful, so we usually just say c. That's the symbol we use for the speed of light constant. But here's the thing that often confuses students. Light doesn't always travel at this speed. You see, the speed we call c is actually the maximum possible speed for light, and it only occurs in a perfect vacuum, basically completely empty space with no matter whatsoever. The moment light encounters any material, whether it's air, water, glass, or even the thin atmosphere in what we consider outer space, it slows down. We measure this slowdown using something called the refractive index. Let me give you a concrete example. When light travels through water, it slows down to about 225 million meters per second. That's still incredibly fast, but it's about 75% of its maximum speed. In diamond, light slows down to roughly 124 million meters per second, less than half its vacuum speed. This is actually why diamonds sparkle so brilliantly. The dramatic speed change causes light to bend and reflect in complex ways. Now you might be wondering, why is the speed of light constant in a vacuum? Well, this is where things get really interesting from a theoretical standpoint. The constancy of light speed isn't just an observed phenomenon. It's actually a fundamental property of space-time itself. Einstein's special theory of relativity is built on this principle, and it leads to some pretty mind-bending consequences. Here's something that really challenges our everyday intuition. Nothing with mass can ever reach the speed of light. As objects approach light speed, strange things happen. Time dilates, meaning time literally passes more slowly for the moving object relative to a stationary observer. Lengths contract in the direction of motion. And perhaps most importantly, the object's mass effectively increases, requiring infinite energy to actually reach light speed. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. While massive objects can't reach light speed, information itself seems to have some interesting relationships with this cosmic speed limit. You've probably heard of quantum entanglement, right? When particles become entangled, measuring one particle instantly affects its partner, regardless of the distance between them. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance because it seemed to violate the light speed limit. Modern physicists have resolved this apparent paradox by distinguishing between information transfer and correlation. The entangled particles are correlated, but you can't actually use this correlation to send information faster than light. It's a subtle but crucial distinction that preserves the fundamental importance of the light speed barrier. Let's talk about some practical applications, because this isn't just theoretical physics. GPS satellites, for instance, have to account for relativistic effects related to light speed. The satellites are moving at high speeds and experiencing different gravitational fields than we are on Earth's surface. Without correcting for time dilation and other relativistic effects, GPS would be off by several kilometers within just a few hours. Here's something that might surprise you. We can actually slow light down to walking speed under very special laboratory conditions. By using ultra-cold atomic gases called Bose-Einstein condensates, researchers have managed to reduce light speed to just a few meters per second. They've even managed to completely stop light and then restart it. These experiments help us understand the fundamental nature of light and matter interaction. The measurement of light speed has an interesting history, too. Early attempts involved everything from astronomical observations to rotating mirrors. Each successive measurement became more precise, and the pursuit of this precision actually drove major advances in experimental physics and technology.
Now answer the questions. What is the main purpose of this lecture? Why does the professor mention GPS satellites? What can be inferred about the relationship between light speed and mass? According to the lecture, what is light's approximate speed in water? Based on the lecture, what does the professor suggest about quantum entanglement? How does the professor structure the discussion of light speed? Listen to a conversation between a student and an administrator.
Excuse me, is this the financial aid office? I'm looking for information about scholarships.
Yes, you're in the right place. I'm Janet Mills, the scholarship coordinator. How can I help you today?
Hi, Ms. Mills. I'm Marcus Johnson, a sophomore majoring in environmental engineering. I heard there might be some new scholarships available for students in STEM fields, and I wanted to see if I might qualify for any of them.
Well, you're right that we do have several STEM-focused scholarships. What's your current GPA?
It's 3.7. I know that's not the highest, but I've been working part-time at the campus recycling center, and I'm involved in the environmental club. We actually just organized a campus-wide sustainability fair last month.
That's great. A 3.7 is actually quite competitive, and your involvement in environmental activities is definitely relevant. Now, let me ask, are you receiving any financial aid currently?
Yes, I have a partial need-based grant that covers about 40% of my tuition. But with living expenses and everything, honestly, I'm struggling to make ends meet.
I understand completely. Let me tell you about a few options. First, there's the Reynolds Foundation STEM Scholarship. That's new this year. It's specifically for undergraduates in engineering programs who demonstrate both academic achievement and community involvement.
That sounds perfect. What are the requirements?
Well, they're looking for students with at least a 3.5 GPA, which you meet, and they want to see evidence of leadership in environmental or sustainability initiatives. Based on what you've told me about the recycling center and the environmental club, you'd be a strong candidate.
Wow, really? How much is the scholarship worth?
It covers full tuition for 2 years. But here's the thing, and I want to be upfront about this. It's extremely competitive. They're only awarding 3 scholarships nationwide this year.
Oh, that is competitive. Are there other options that might be more realistic?
Absolutely. There's also the Green Innovation Grant. It's smaller, $2,500 per semester, but they award about 20 of these each year. The application is less intensive, too. You'd need to submit a proposal for an environmental project you'd like to work on.
This is really encouraging. When are the application deadlines?
For the Reynolds Foundation, applications are due December 15th, so you'd have about 6 weeks to put together a really strong application. The Green Innovation Grant has a rolling deadline, but I'd recommend applying by early November to be considered for spring semester funding.
Okay, that's manageable.
Now, I should mention, there's one more scholarship you might want to consider, the university's own Environmental Leadership Award. It's worth $1,000 per year, renewable, and frankly, given your background, you'd have a very good chance of receiving it. Your work with both the recycling center and organizing the sustainability fair demonstrates exactly the kind of leadership they're looking for.
This is incredible.
Here's what I suggest. Start with the University Environmental Leadership Award, since it has the highest probability of success. Then work on the Green Innovation Grant proposal. If you're feeling ambitious, you can tackle the Reynolds Foundation application, but honestly, focus your energy where you're most likely to succeed.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for all this information, Ms. Mills.
You're very welcome, Marcus. Good luck.
Now answer the questions. Why does the student visit the financial aid office? Listen again to part of the conversation.
How much is the scholarship worth?
It covers full tuition for 2 years. But here's the thing, and I want to be upfront about this. It's extremely competitive. They're only awarding 3 scholarships nationwide this year.
What does the administrator mean when she says this?
I want to be upfront about this.
According to the administrator, how many green innovation grants are awarded each year? What can be inferred about the student's chances for the Environmental Leadership Award? Which statement best describes the relationship between the 3 scholarships mentioned? Listen to part of a lecture in a Roman history class.
Today, we're going to explore something that I think really gets to the heart of what made Roman civilization so remarkable and, frankly, so influential even today. We're going to look at Roman culture, not just the emperors and battles you've probably heard about, but the everyday beliefs, practices, and social structures that held this vast empire together for centuries. Now, when we talk about Roman culture, we need to be careful about generalizations. The Roman Empire at its height stretched from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Turkey. That's an enormous geographic area with hundreds of different local cultures. But what's fascinating is how the Romans managed to create a unifying cultural framework that could accommodate this diversity while still maintaining a distinctly Roman identity. Let's start with what I consider the foundation of Roman culture, the concept of virtus. This Latin word is often translated as virtue, but that doesn't really capture its full meaning. Virtus encompassed courage, certainly, but also discipline, duty to the state, and what we might call civic responsibility. For Romans, virtus wasn't just about personal character, it was about how your character served the greater good of Rome. This ties directly into another fundamental Roman concept, pietas. Again, translation is tricky here. Pietas involved duty and loyalty, but specifically loyalty to family, to the gods, and to Rome itself. These weren't separate categories for Romans. They were interconnected. Your duty to your family was inseparable from your duty to the state, which was inseparable from your duty to the gods. Now let's talk about how these values played out in daily life. Roman society was highly stratified. You had citizens and non-citizens, patricians and plebeians, free people and slaves. But here's what's interesting. Mobility was possible. Through military service, business success, or political achievement, a person could rise in status. The Romans even had a formal process for freeing slaves, and freedmen often became quite successful in business and even politics.
Professor, how did Romans from different parts of the empire communicate with each other?
Excellent question, Laura. This actually illustrates something crucial about Roman cultural policy. Latin was the official language of administration and law throughout the empire, but Romans were generally quite pragmatic about local languages. Religion provides another window into Roman culture. Romans were remarkably tolerant of local religious practices, as long as those practices didn't conflict with Roman political authority. You could worship your local gods, but you also needed to show proper respect to Roman gods and later to the emperor himself. This created a kind of religious syncretism where local deities often became identified with Roman gods. The baths, the public bathhouses, tell us something different but equally important about Roman culture. These weren't just places to get clean, they were social centers where business was conducted, friendships were formed, and cultural values were transmitted. The baths were open to all social classes, though with different sections and different times. It was one of the few places where the rigid social hierarchy relaxed somewhat. Family structure was absolutely central to Roman culture. The paterfamilias, the male head of household, had enormous authority, but also enormous responsibility. He was responsible not just for his immediate family, but for slaves, clients, and sometimes extended family members. The Roman family was really an economic and political unit, not just a kinship group. What's remarkable about Roman culture is its adaptability. Romans were incredibly good at absorbing useful elements from other cultures while maintaining their own identity. They adopted Greek art and philosophy, Germanic military techniques, Eastern religious practices, but they made these elements Roman. This cultural flexibility was probably one of their greatest strengths. The decline of Roman culture is a topic we'll explore more next week, but I'll leave you with this thought. Many of the values and practices we've discussed today, the emphasis on law, civic duty, practical education, cultural synthesis, these didn't disappear when the political empire collapsed. They were transmitted through the Catholic Church, through legal traditions, through educational systems. In many ways, we're still living with the cultural legacy of Rome.
What is the main focus of the lecture? Why does the professor mention the Roman baths? What can be inferred about Roman cultural policy toward conquered territories? According to the lecture, what did the concept of virtus include? What connection does the professor make between different aspects of Roman culture? How does the professor organize the discussion of Roman cultural elements?
By the way, if you want more TOEFL listening practice tests, click the like button and write yes in the comments. If you want something else, tell me your video wish in the comments so I know what you would like to see on this channel. Now, let's take a look at the correct answers. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you're notified when the next video comes out. Also, share this video with your friends so they can improve their TOEFL score too. See you in the next video.